Belgrade Beat.
Hey folks, welcome to Belgrade Beat, and today we have Zen Lewis, who is back from America. You grew up in Belgrade, mostly, and you've lived since 2019 in the San Francisco area of the United States, California.
Correct.
And you've come back for a short visit to Belgrade, and let's catch up. I mean, the first time I interviewed you was in
San Francisco.
Yeah, and your impressions there were interesting. And so I think the audience will be interested in hearing what you...
And a follow-up.
Yeah, a follow-up on what you learned about life and all that stuff from being over there in the States. So let's start with, how does it feel to be back in Belgrade?
So, looking that I did go to elementary and high school here, I do have a lot of connections. I have a lot of people here that I haven't connected with.
Yeah.
That I was very excited to come back and see everyone that I have been connected with for the past 12 years that I've been living here in Belgrade, Serbia.
Yeah.
That it's been really interesting for me for the past few days to see everything, because like shifting life in different cultures on two different continents is really a lot within 2 years, and then just like shifting back and seeing how different some cultural shocks can be.
So what's your reverse culture shock? I mean, obviously the place has changed because of the whole situation. Yeah. But what's the first thing you noticed? Did it feel like coming home?
So the first thing that I noticed is that everything is open. Although everything is open until 8, everything is open to me. Like, for instance, today I went with my friend to a store, and we were looking at some clothes, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cute. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'll just, like, use the changing room. And I was like, the changing room is open?
Whoa. So in America, everything's closed. So you started, you got, like, a beautiful, like, few months of normal American life, and then lockdown.
Basically, that's how most part of San Francisco and California has been. And for people that don't know, San Francisco has had one of the worst lockdowns in the entire U.S. since March 16th, 2020.
Oh my God. And so let's talk about what your initial impressions are of America before the whole situation. Like, what did you really love about your life? What was, what didn't you like? Let's start with what you liked.
I really liked people for the most part, and like I'm a people person, so if I feel anywhere where people are like very open and accepting, I'm very happy to not cooperate with them, but just like socialize with them. That I really liked that everyone there wanted to talk, that everyone wanted to have a communication, wanted to get to know you better. And probably the biggest culture shock to me was that everyone drinks there. As a person
in the States,
everyone has a drink, so like if you're under 21, wah, wah, wah,
yeah.
wah.
So you moved after you turned 18 or here, and you were, you know,
legal in voting age, but not legal in drinking age.
Yeah.
In the
So
US.
then you moved to a place, where it was illegal again to drink. So, well, that was a shock. But Americans in general were very nice and like welcoming.
They really were.
And your father's American, so you know you grew up with that culture as a thing. And how did the expectation? Yeah.
At the same time, although if you do grow up with a person that has been living on a different continent, and might not always be, because he did become more Europeanized than you would have expected. So anyone, of course, is going to stay longer in a continent or in a city that they're living, of course, they're going to become Americanized, westernized, anything.
But at least you have the language.
That is
for
true.
For example, and yeah, some ideas. Although your father is quite eccentric for Americans. So what was it like getting?
Everyone else in the world, for that matter. So.
What was it like getting in touch with the real America? I mean, what was surprising about it? Like,
you could just you just saw the shocked Pikachu face I had, but it has been interesting as well. Within the most part, people have been more close up and doing their own thing. For instance, like I live in an apartment where I have like street facing stuff, or like I have street facing view, and I hear everything that happens at like 4 a.m. So if it happens, I personally would call if like anyone, like an ambulance or anything, if someone is in help. But I did notice that a lot of people just turn a blind eye over there, and they're just like, oh, it's your problem, you'll be fine.
Yeah, so you feel that people here in Serbia know what's going on more in their neighborhood, watch out for each other and stuff like that. Basically, it's more of a community.
Because people in Serbia actually know. They're like, oh my God, you live with yada da and yada da? Oh my God, we've been friends for like 15 50 years and you're just like, oh, cool. Like, what am I getting myself into right now?
But were there also benefits to moving to a place where you didn't know anybody and people let you mind your own business?
Of course, because you're basically making, so if you grew up somewhere else, people are going to know you. You're going to know the people around you, and specifically if you grew up there, all of the parents, all the kids are going to know each other through somebody or somehow.
Yeah.
But if you move to a whole new continent in a whole new city, you're basically building yourself up again because nobody knows you. Nobody knows like what are you like. Nobody knows what your interests are. Nobody's going to know if you want a Nobel Prize or not. Okay, maybe you will, but
yeah.
You get the point. You get a metaphor that I wanted to showcase within that point.
Yeah, and so back in Serbia, I mean, do you feel like it's changed, but I mean, what did you miss about here, and what was the thing that you missed the most actually? Food. Yeah. So let's talk about that, because in America, I mean, people think that everything's better in America, but food actually isn't.
It's not. I can just say from personal experience, as a person who was 50 kilos here or 120 pounds, I gained 30 pounds or 15 kilos or 20 kilos because...
Just from American food.
Just from American food. Some people it's going to be more noticeable, with some people it's not. So if you're afraid of talking about like the American life and if it is going to gain some weight, well, unfortunately you are. To anyone that has been living there even for a couple of months, it does happen.
And also there's a culture of like fast food and eating there that's like excessive, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, if you want to eat food and if you want to eat healthy food, you're at least going to spend $600 per month for quality food. So you can eat, for instance, organic, or if you can even eat some fruits and vegetables.
Not really a student budget, is it?
Not really.
Yeah. So food was a shock of the American culture. Yeah, that's actually one of the main reasons why I love living in Serbia, is because there's just a higher quality here, you know, more local agriculture, less stuff that comes on a truck from places like Latin America. They grow stuff here. It's good food and a good culture around it. But I'd say that the cuisine in a place like San Francisco, you've got like, I remember we went for Ethiopian food there, and you've got a lot more accessible to you, a lot more different types of food. So what was interesting that you tried?
So Ethiopian food was one of them. I've tried Korean food for the first time. I've actually tried real Japanese food. I've been trying Nigerian cuisine. I've tried Russian cuisine. Although we do live in Belgrade, it's not the same like Russian cuisine, although it does have some similarities. You should just try it. At the same time, I had time to try some Ukrainian food because my best friend is Ukrainian. So although I did go away from Southeastern Europe, the Eastern Europe is still with me.
Yeah, the immigrant culture. So how did it sort of change your identity being there? I mean, because, you know, growing up with a parent who was from the USA, like that, was that always part of your identity, and is it stronger now?
I wouldn't know how to answer that question right now, because I still think that if you move somewhere, it approximately takes 5 years for you to fully adapt where you're living.
Okay, so still work in progress.
So still work in progress, but when it comes to like nationality, I am a citizen of a Eastern, not an Eastern, oh my God, from from an EU country, and I'm also a US citizen, so I did have the best of both worlds. A lot of people don't have the chance to get the golden ticket to have both EU and US passports, or paperwork for that matter. Yeah. So
that was easy. You didn't have to go through like 2 years of sending papers to the embassy. You just got a passport from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing with that was, for instance, over here, while I lived and grew up in Europe, people were like, "Oh my God, you're not from here. You're American. You're this. You're that."
Yeah.
And then when I moved to the U.S., like everyone has a slight accent. Like wherever you live, and if you don't live in a dominant English-speaking country, people are gonna hear your accent, even if it's so small. People are still going to hear it. That people there, they're like, "Oh my God, you're not from the States. Where are you from? You're not American. You're not this. You're not that." So by culture, I'm European.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like everything else, by like paperwork and stuff that I'm going to do, I'm technically American. So I feel like I'm more in like the middle ground in the gray zone, where you're a bit of both.
Which you have the opportunity to sort of define your identity based on how you want to project yourself, perceive yourself, and all that sort of stuff. And don't listen to people who think you're not this, you're not that. I mean, just be yourself. I mean, that's I guess what I kind of learned growing up, being the first generation from my family born in North America, it's like, yeah, you've got good stuff that's coming from both sides. You've got good stuff that's coming from wherever you're at, and you can really very easily, having those two reference points or multiple reference points, you can very easily become a citizen of the world. So yeah, it's good. So
I can see you related with me regarding that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of strange to have people always asking where you're from, even when it's where you're from. And
yeah, because it's for instance, I'm not sure if like anyone who is a dual citizen, they're like, where are you from? Now you're gonna say, where are you born, or where are your parents from, or where did you live?
This is why I kind of understand people who are transsexual, because it's not always easy to answer those identity questions in a clear-cut way that I feel like I'm transcultural and I'm taking the best of things from around the world and I'm becoming my own unique person from it. And yeah, it's interesting. So other culture shocks in America, for example, the school system. Tell me about that. How did that surprise you?
I actually like it.
Yeah?
I like it more than the Serbian system because I'm a person that likes studying by herself. I like having a deadline to do something and do it at your own pace. In Serbia, for instance, if you're in high school, you would have, let's say, 3 tests in one day, 2 pismenis, and then have like an usmeni. I'm not sure how you would say that in English, but basically if you would have an oral exam. So you would have all of that in one cramped week or even in one day or 2 days where you would basically not get any sleep and your grades would deteriorate.
Yeah.
While on the other hand, in the US, and on top of that in Serbia, you're taking 15 subjects. And then once when I moved to the US, I was like, so I'm only taking like 5 classes that are like 15
So it was
units.
a little easier actually.
It was a lot
coming
easier.
from because school here is a very sort of strict thing, right?
Yeah. So from there, like I went from being a really good student in Serbia to going to be a 4.0 student, meaning that I have all A's or all 10 in like the Serbian system of the way of grading.
Yeah.
Which has really increased like my chances of receiving a scholarship and receiving grants and everything, because people over there care more about your grades than anything else.
Okay. So did you find that the university was competitive over there? Like people were, yeah.
It really is. Like wherever you go, people are there fighting for scholarships because not a lot of people can actually afford school over there. School is a luxury and not a necessity by the end of the day. Especially if you're a foreign citizen, like you're probably at least going to have to pay $10,000 per year to attend a school and have some decent type of education for a public school.
So how did you make it happen? Some sort of scholarship or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Awesome.
I actually had my own way. I went from a CSU, that's a California State University, and I transferred myself to a community college because one semester at a CSU was $10,000 for me at the time, which was a lot.
Yeah.
I transferred to a community college where my tuition is $0. So if you're already doing the same thing, if you're considering of moving to the US as a student, I say first go to a community college. It's going to be much cheaper. You're going to get some type of paperwork, at least a driver's license or something to show that you're living in state.
So what are you studying now?
I'm still studying political science, international relations, and I'm planning on going to UC Hastings for law in the next few years.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
Ambitious. Ambitious. So, I mean, and campus culture and all that sort of stuff, how does it differ from here? Like the way students interact, the way they like to have fun and all that stuff?
From what I saw from only one semester, before
because
everything
then
went into lockdown. Basically. People are very lively there. People are playing, like, for instance, the first week when I moved there were, like, people playing Frisbee. And I was like, oh, yeah, you guys are having fun. They were like, oh, come on, join us. And I was like, you guys want to have interaction with other people? Well, here in Serbia, if you saw people playing Frisbee in the park, they might be like, I don't know you.
So people stay more in their social circle here, whereas like over there, they're a little bit more like mixing.
So for instance, when it comes to the social circle, I would probably say when it's outdoors, people are more friendly there. But for instance, if you go here to like a kafana or a club or something, people are going to be more open to you in Serbia than they're going to be in the States.
Okay.
At least what I've noticed when I went out to a couple of like clubs and stuff, like people there in the clubs, they stay in their own groups. Outdoor activities such as like parks and stuff like that, people are open.
Yeah.
And it's vice versa like that in Serbia, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
Now, did you find it like, okay, looking back on making friends here in Serbia versus making friends there in the States, and like meaningful, lasting friendships, where was it easier?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, for instance, like I had my friends here that I was talking for 3 years almost every day on FaceTime. And while I'm now here in Serbia, I still have my 5 friends that I met there in the United States check up on me every day. So
Yeah.
I don't think it has been hard. I just think that I was lucky myself that I met people that really care about me and that I care about myself.
Yeah.
So I think that that's more up to an individual than it is to a different
Your
continent.
approach, yeah. But the style of socializing, well, you found it easy to move there and just make friends and sort of like live your life and start afresh. Like,
Of course, it took time. For instance, like one of my first friends that I met, they really didn't want to have any type of interaction. But then if you continue talking with them and if you kind of were more like, oh yeah, like I'm actually not going to I'm not going to quit approaching you, then they're kind of going to be like, okay, like I got to talk to you right now. But from there, I mean, within the most part, I think that both continents have been easy of their own way. But I would probably say that in the US, people are more stereotypical and afraid of people approaching them.
yeah.
As they don't know why is the person exactly approaching them. While
What's
over
your
here-
motive? What do you want from me?
Basically. While over here, they'll be like, oh my god, cool. Like, you want like some rakia? You want some candy? Like, that never take
You want to
candy
come
from
to my
Sweden.
grandmother's place and try the sarma? You know, like all that stuff.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay. And so working there as well. Like,
Yeah, full time.
Yeah, full time.
Full-time school,
in addition to
full-time work, yeah.
So how much time does that leave? Because this is a stereotype, actually. I think that a lot of people have of moving to these countries, like in the West, is that you're basically gonna be working all the time. You're basically gonna be. It's all about work there. People work so hard. Yeah, life is better. You know, like you'll make more money. You'll be more successful. But I mean, did that benefit you? Do you like it, or would you like to have more spare time?
I like it in my own way. So like once when I moved to the US, I knew like you always have those like little circles. For instance, you can have social life, you can have sleep, you can have work, and you can have grades. You can always have 3 of the 4, and you're always going to have to sacrifice one.
Okay.
The one that I sacrifice in the United States is a social life, but I don't mind sacrificing the social life due to the lockdown happening over there right now.
Sure.
You can't even go outside. So even though
You can't go outside?
I mean, you can, but like you can't do anything.
Yeah.
We just opened outdoor dining. Like that's new to us. And I was like, "Oh my god, we have outdoor dining." And over here I see people dining indoor, and I was like, "Oh my god, what?"
So how was it? How would you contrast based on what you've seen here since you got back and the attitude over there? What's the difference between how people over there think of coronavirus versus?
I'm just gonna say everyone is wearing a mask there. If you walk out without a mask or even your mask like showing underneath your nose, people are gonna give you a death stare. People are even gonna show up and like start like.
So you just want to do this basically?
Basically.
Yeah.
So that
Just
like
stay home.
people would give you the death stare and they would be like, oh my god, like why are you doing this? Like wear a mask. Like there's like people like I was in New York a couple of days ago and I just took my mask off because I was by myself in Central Park. Like there was literally nobody behind me. And there was just a person coming up to me. They were like, "Put your mask on."
Oh my god!
She was like 30 feet away from me, and I was like, "You're kind of far." 30 feet away is like 50 meters ish, approximately.
Yeah. 30 feet?
I don't know.
No. 15?
I don't know.
It's 15. Yeah.
Oh, okay, 15 meters.
Yeah.
So we're into conversions.
Yeah. So
That was another
it's much
shock as
more
well.
hysterical there. People are super policing each other, super concerned about it, and
At the same time, at least what I can say, San Francisco has less than 50 cases a day.
yeah.
So at least they're doing something right about it, and they're currently having an entire storm of people coming in and getting vaccines. So they're probably going to open up everything soon once everyone is vaccinated.
I really hope so. I really, really hope so. Yeah. So being locked down in America, I mean, it was not fun, right? But now you see yourself...
In some sorts, for instance, like you had more time to go outdoors, you had more time to explore stuff. So
more time for yourself at home to learn stuff.
If you're a person who likes outdoors, who likes hiking, this was great for you. Like you've been working from home, you can sometimes just like leave to go on like you're working. You can just go to like across the bridge and just enjoy your day.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Like don't do that. That's bad advice.
So you had this like sort of high-paced American lifestyle for a few months, and then it all kind of just
basically, but at the same time it's not that bad. If you have people that like you're connected with and people that you like and that like you're still gonna have a blast, because at least what I learned there in the United States, you have 5 close people your entire life, while in Serbia you have 500 people that are close to you your entire life, because here in Belgrade everyone knows you.
It's a village.
It's basically a village.
Dorchol is a village.
I agree.
Yeah.
Vračar too.
Yeah, 2 villages connected pretty much.
Yeah, everyone knows each other from Vračar and Dorchol. Like,
yeah.
Wherever you go.
That's the thing that I really like about Belgrade, is it has that small town vibe in a big city, that it's sort of cosmopolitan, and yeah, it's still amazing. I mean, I can't wait for spring here, because I feel like once it gets warmer, everything's just gonna be like amazing.
I can see that. I mean, it already is starting right now.
Well, when I came back, like I was in Thailand for the lockdown, and basically like I really came back and I didn't know what to expect from the whole situation. But when I got back, they just removed all the restrictions and it was back to normal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was a good summer last year. You know, there was a little bit of like weirdness when they wanted to do another lockdown, but then people protested outside of Parliament. But it was life as usual in Belgrade, and I'm so grateful for that. Then in November.
Oh, if you guys are interested, I'm currently writing a 25-page essay on that. It's going to be published within the next 6 months. So if you guys are interested,
what's it all about?
About the protests that have been happening within the past year.
Oh, in Serbia.
Actually, within the past 3 years, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So they're allowing you to write an essay. You chose to write an essay about Serbia and the insights into it.
Yeah, so I'm currently doing a honors project for my comparative government class, and I'm going to be writing about Serbia, Vucic, the tyranny, authoritarianism, and everything happening within that point, and how people have been taking it.
Yeah, okay. But what do you think of the American system of government? What do you think of the way that they manage their because from my perspective, like me personally, I feel I'm more free over here. As long as I don't like listen to local people and how much they hate life here and hate this and hate that and hate on the, because I'm a foreigner. Yeah, I can speak the language reasonably decently, but I also know little enough that I can tune it out at any point and just like live in my little foreigner bubble, right? But what do you think about the American system? I mean, would you call that like democratic?
At the same time, I'm really gonna keep my comments to minimal right now. Looking at I'm gonna want to go into the law field later in my life. So
yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
That's gonna be one of the first things. So I'm gonna keep it very much at a minimal.
Oh, you're such a diplomat.
I'm gonna have to keep it very much at a minimal, because you're never gonna know if you're gonna be looking for a job as a lawyer and if someone's gonna find something like you. Really
oh yeah.
Especially looking that I want to be a lawyer in the United States. You really got to pay attention.
Okay.
But what I can say with everything that has been happening with the elections, I have been shocked with everything. I actually worked for Election Day.
Okay. Doing what?
I was one of the persons that were working with the voters.
Working with them on how?
Basically, like either one of them, like looking at there was like a huge COVID thing. Like a lot of people actually did not come in and vote. I was talking with a woman that was working with me at the polling place, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is my 10th election.
Yeah.
It's never been so slow."
Oh.
Like we had maybe a total of, we actually had a total of 56 people out of 1,000 that were able to be registered in this, in the area that they were voting for.
Okay.
And there were more people that left in ballots, but it wasn't the same. And within the most part, the people were very close, and like you notice that California itself is very democratic.
Yeah.
But the thing that I can openly say right now is San Francisco became the theft city, and that I do agree with people wanting to recall Mr. Buden. And I strongly agree with that, and I can see if people are going to want to make a change, as well as for my district. And hopefully they are going to make some change, at least to have a re-vote or a re-election within some sorts, because more and more people are becoming dissatisfied with the political views right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to share your opinion, that's fine. But I'm going to say that I think that the system of the United States did lots of people really a lot of good for a lot of time, and that it was, it's not the fairest system in the world. Being from Canada, I think that's more fair, and lots of European countries are much more fair in terms of social equality and stuff like that. But the system is definitely showing some cracks. If you know what I mean, it's like and this lockdown thing, it's like it's you have to respond to the situation in a certain way, but there's a lot of bad stuff happening in terms of people's livelihoods and the inequality in the States, which is growing between the essentially richest people and everyone else. It's widening. So in terms of law, what interests you of actually getting into the legal profession in America? What's actually the drive there? What's the passion?
So, firstly, I was thinking since it was like 14, I want to go into the law and government field. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And it was either that or psychology. And the more I was like finishing high school, like every second person that I heard, they were like, I'm going to study psychology. And I was like, there's going to be a lot of psychologists in like 5 to 10 years. So,
yeah.
And not a lot of people were talking about politics and stuff like that. And I was pretty much reading a lot. And also my good old friend's father is also a journalist within the United States and Serbia. And I have a lot of respect for him. And I learned a lot from him and from his interviews. So, to Mr. John out there, thank you for teaching me, and mentoring within some sorts, because that really intrigued me to go more into the law and political science field. And going to law school has been a recent decision, because I noticed over there you can't do anything with a bachelor's, so you are going to have to go with something. And with my bachelor's, the only thing I can do is law, so I might as well go in law.
Yeah, but it's a brutal system over there. There's more lawsuits in the United States, like per capita, than anywhere in the world, and
it's a great way for lawyers to make good bank as well.
Yeah. Oh, you can make lots of money. Yeah. But okay, so put yourself. I mean, this is what I tend to find with people is like, they focus on a career like law. It's super stressful. You're working 60-hour weeks or even more, and all of this stuff, and then they make lots of money. Okay, so you start making $100,000 a year, like out of law school, maybe. And then you go to 200, 300, 400, and then is that really going to make you happy?
I don't think that money can always buy you happiness.
So, but if you combine something like law with some sort of passion for making, social change or something and making life better for people, then it can be good. So, what areas do you see an opportunity for making life better, either in Serbia or in the United States?
So first of all, there's a lot of minorities. I think that a lot of minorities and representation within minorities is essential, and that people need to have someone that they can talk to. For instance, like in San Francisco, there's more and more people that are like, for instance, LGBT, or if you are unfortunately disabled of some sort, there are going to be people to represent. Also, when it comes to self-injuries or like injuries at work and stuff like that, a lot of people are compromised there because they don't get health insurance from their work, and their work does not want to be liable for them getting injured. Yeah,
that's a big thing for the States. It's like, it's like if you don't have a good job, if you have a job, it doesn't mean you're going to have healthcare. And so it's like, and they don't really have a robust public system like a lot of European countries do. And that seems to be something that, I mean, you had like Bernie Sanders, who was all about this sort of stuff, bring down the cost of education and healthcare and all that stuff. But America wasn't ready for him. So you got Joe Biden, which is basically just the same sort of government that it's had for a long time. Like in Canada, the way we look at the United States politics is like kind of like both the Republicans and Democrats are kind of in terms of stuff like legal and healthcare and pharmaceutical companies and all that stuff, they're really both right-wing parties. Like you've got like some sort of really right-wing thing and some sort of center-right thing compared to Canadian politics, where we have free healthcare or Yeah, government
Free
funded.
healthcare.
Yeah, it's free for citizens. I mean, the doctors are still making obscene amounts of money compared to places like in Europe, even England. But it is free for all citizens, and the United States is really behind a lot of developed nations in that. And I think that there is like an opportunity, like in this age, to really change a lot of that stuff. Because I mean, I call it predatory capitalism, where specifically food we already touched on, where big companies are essentially owning the entire food supply chain, and they're trying to maximize profits. Same in the pharmaceutical industry, same in lots of these sorts of sectors where you can exert that sort of centralized control, and capitalism drives profits, and companies are concerned with making as much money as possible for their shareholders and all that sort of stuff. And it perpetuates a system that it's done really well for a lot of people for a long time, but I'm sure that there are better ideas and better systems that we could transition to as a human race. But with this level of sort of political situation in the States, there's too many lobbyists, and the governments are obviously funded by the biggest corporations, and it's a system which
Unfortunately, very capitalist.
It's very capitalist, and you've seen inequality, like in San Francisco, how many homeless people there are. And
for people that don't know, San Francisco is currently the worst city to be in the United States when it comes to homeless people. That even the homeless rate.
Is it the worst for the number of homeless people, or is it actually the worst place to be as a homeless person? Like,
I know it's the best place to be as a homeless person. Yeah. But it's the worst city when it comes to homeless per capita. We have 20,000 homeless right now. Well, last year in 2019, I'm talking about 2020. 2020, 20,000 homeless people. 2019, there was only 7,500.
Wow.
So a lot more people became homeless. And what the United States have been doing is, because they know San Francisco has a good program for homelessness, they're actually deploying people to San Francisco that are homeless from not from California, from Los Angeles or from San Diego, from Seattle, and they're all just sending them and shipping them over to San Francisco.
Just dumping them there.
Basically, we're becoming worse and worse when it comes to that. Like, you have three entire neighborhoods that you need to avoid for the homeless if you do not want to get stabbed, robbed, or even startled of any sort.
And so Serbia is a much poorer country than America. Why do you think that there's not a problem with homelessness here?
I've never thought of that in that way, but I would say probably is the possibility of people just like, if you don't make money in 1 week, you can lose everything. Well, here, the landlords are like, you're going to know someone. People here in Serbia are going to be like, oh yeah, you can stay with me. Or, oh yeah, like I can stay with my baba.
Families are stronger.
Yeah.
People are more into the collective of the family, friends, the community, and all that stuff. Whereas in the United States, it's very easy to...
But at the same time, I do think at the same time, for instance, in San Francisco, a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm still going to live in San Francisco. And they don't want to leave, for instance, to go back to Wyoming, let's say, where they originally come from, because they still think that it's going to get better. And unfortunately, it just gets worse. And then afterwards, you're just on the street and you can't do anything. Actually,
yeah, because it's very easy to fall out of social circles and sort of become alienated from society over there. And like the streets, is just all you got all of a sudden because you can't afford like $2, $3, $4 a month for rent, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I worked with homeless people in 2019 when I just first moved to San Francisco. What a great way to start living in the United States. And I remember I was talking to a homeless woman, and there was a person passing by, and she was like, oh my God, like some woman's name. And the homeless person I was talking to turns around, and she was like, oh my God, I'm just going to use random names. And she was like, oh my God, Lisa? She was like, oh my God, yeah. And they started hugging and they started crying. And I was like, what just happened? And she was like, this is my sister. I didn't know she was homeless. And then she just went with her back home. And like, although they live in the same city, she didn't know that her sister was on the streets.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Family values are weaker. It's all I have to say. One of the things you can really appreciate about this country is that people do watch out for each other. Like, you would never
I agree.
not have a place to stay. Whereas in America, everybody's kind of individualist, doing their own thing, and even family comes second place to career, I think.
In most cases, yeah.
In most cases, yeah.
I did actually have a great friend that when I first moved there was having a rough time within the first couple of months when I came there. And I have a person and they were like, oh yeah, you can just be with us. So even until this day, like I really appreciate the family. I'm just going to say the Wolf family, so thank you for that. And they were very open, and they were actually not from there. Like they have descent within Latin America and Europe, which does also show why family does come first, is because they have not yet been fully Americanized.
Yeah.
Where there is more about the individual instead of the family itself.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the weakness of the system. Yeah, I guess the two weaknesses are like that it's a very sort of competitive environment where, you know, big corporations are at the top of society and people come second to that, and everybody's putting family second to their career. Like not everybody, but yeah, it's a lot of that. And yeah, so I mean, you can have a brilliant future there, I'm sure, if you go into law and you find something that you feel passionate about, that you're making a difference and also making a decent amount of money. I mean, that can be great. And so, do you imagine yourself living in the States for the rest of your life? Or I know you probably don't have a concrete plan right now, but
so my plan is I don't plan on staying anywhere really. Like my main goal is just to travel around as much as I can. And if like you can, for instance, stay here and here for a couple of months, that's going to be great. And then if you're like, oh, like you can move there, that's going to be great. Another thing you can do with law is you can be an ambassador. As an ambassador, you can be in many different countries your entire life and still do your duty in
would
law.
you prefer to be an ambassador for Serbia or America? I know that's not this. It's not a choice that you would have, but which would you prefer?
I don't know. That's a really good
Which would
question.
more embody you? Or
The thing is, I don't agree with both of the sides for some views specifically.
yeah, no country's
So-
perfect. This is the problem with
Exactly.
politics. You know, like I run a business and I can run it the way that I want. But when you're in politics, you're representing the people and you're representing interest groups. You're representing lobbyists, donors. You're representing traditions of law. You're representing all this stuff. So politics is complicated, and I don't think it's my jam specifically, because I enjoy, you know, you create a business and you start it from the ground up and you can put your own values in there. Whereas when you're in a system like a country, a government, or even somebody else's business, you need to fit into the culture that's already established there.
Agreed.
And so it's like, I'm happy doing my thing, traveling around the world with my business, and it's really good. And but yeah, we also need leaders in this world, on the level of politics and all of that, and law and all that stuff. And from all the personal development work I've done, the thing that I remember the most is the phrase that's the most poignant for this is, we don't lack people to be led, we lack leaders to lead them. And so the more perspective you can get on how to motivate people and create positive change in the world, the better you can be a leader. And it's not always easy. No matter what you do in life, somebody's going to be hating on it, especially if you're a politician or, you know, all that sort of stuff. But I mean, the most important thing is that you just take your values and figure out what they are, and find a way that you can connect with like-minded people and make a change in the world. So
Agreed.
yeah.
And by the end of the day, although people are like, oh yeah, we're always in a pack, there's unfortunately always going to be a leader and a follower.
Yeah.
And it's not something that can be changed. Possibly, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of unity, which
There's always going to be,
lacking.
yeah, but most people just want to have a decent life. You know, that's what you
I agree.
realize when you see people in different countries. You realize that most people just want to have a decent life, have people that they love around them, and, you know, earn a decent living and have the simple pleasures of life. And, you know, then there's us who feel, for whatever reason, this calling of sort of like, I want to aspire to greatness. I want to make my own thing. I want to lead other people and all that stuff. It's almost like a mental illness, but it's what society needs. I always think it would be easier to just like have stayed in one country my entire life, to have, you know, just worked a job or something like that. But that was not
The question is,
yeah.
would that fulfill you?
No. because it's my personality, and when I hear you talk, I hear a similar sort of ambition and a similar sort of, I'm gonna, like, you went to America and you just, like, you know, you hit the ground running. I mean, when I saw you in November of 2019 there,
I was lost. I was really lost.
you weren't lost though. You already had work. You already had friends. You had found a place to stay in the city center of San Francisco. You weren't lost.
Oh, yeah,
it was a work in
actually,
progress, but
yeah,
it was good.
the
I
place
was
in the
impressed.
city- the place in the city was actually one of my other friends that helped me out when I was in the rough time.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people would do that. Again, they're actually not from San Francisco, at least one part of the family. So
Yeah.
at least what I noticed in the United States, people that are more open and more sociable are usually people that are also either first generation American or they have someone that is not.
They know
from
the
United
struggle.
States.
They know the struggle. Like when I moved to London in 2011, on the website Couchsurfing, I found this couple. One of them was Polish, one of them was Greek, and they were also living in London, you know, as foreigners. And they were like, you can come and sleep on our floor in our living room until you find your own place. That was just like amazing. And yeah, but people who have just lived in their own little box their whole life and, you know, stressing about their career, doing this and doing that, and they're more closed off. But those of us who know what it's like to actually land in a new place and have to start from zero with like little help other than what you make, the opportunities you make from your own social skills, I mean, we'll help each other out, you know?
I agree.
So, you know, I like to give it back and just sort of always try to be somebody who at least can help with advice and friendship and, you know, as much as I can. And you know, when
It's always a boost, specifically if you move to a new place or if you know for someone that just moved, even being like, hey, I want to show you the city is going to mean a lot to them. Because if they don't know the city, they're not going to know where to go, where not to go, where's a good place to shop, where's a good place to find food,
yeah,
healthy food or anything. Or even if you're like, oh yeah, hey, like I know this and this might help you. Just say whatever you know, because sometimes something that is just your knowledge can be another person's gold.
yep. Did you actually make any friends who grew up in San Francisco, were actually like from there, or was everybody
My
else?
partner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome.
My partner's 21, born and raised in San Francisco. The other two people that have also lived, they were born and raised in San Francisco.
Yeah.
One of them was living in the city.
Cool.
So all of my friends are actually from San Francisco.
Nice.
I only have one friend that's from Ukraine, so the Eastern Europe is still there.
Yeah, sure.
And within that point, like for instance, my partner, he lived in San Francisco his entire life.
Yeah.
And he's currently in a weird stage of life because he just turned 21, about to graduate college, about to like enter adulthood. And for instance, as mentioned, in the United States, you have like 5 people that you're with your entire life and you don't really change that. Well, 2 out of 4 of his two out of 4 of his friends are moving to the East Coast by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So a couple of them are in the military. So he's not going to see them. So that's another thing that people don't realize. If you live in a city such as San Francisco, and if your best friends are moving, you're really not, although it is a city where like, another thing, for instance, where is the difference between Belgrade and San Francisco? In Belgrade, there's not a lot of people that are coming, but there's a lot of people that are fleeing. But in San Francisco, there's a lot of people that are both coming and fleeing out of the city the entire time.
Yeah.
So even if you do meet someone, they might not be there in 2 months. You never know.
Yeah.
So finding anything stable in that city can be hard, especially if that stability is going to change. It's not going to be the same within the next 5 to 10 years because you might lose a piece of yourself because that piece just left.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that I've noticed within that point as well.
So if you were to do the whole thing over again, you can go back into 2019 when you moved there. What advice would you give yourself to make it a more smooth transition?
Find a job. Unfortunately, find a job immediately because if you don't, you're going to sink in San Francisco or anywhere else in the U.S. for that matter. And as well as like even if you do think you're going to have something over there immediately, you got to be prepared and you might have to shift and change within the next couple of minutes because in the United States, everything changes every single minute and you don't know if you're going to be on top of the game or not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm summing up. I'm really it's really great to catch up with you and see how much like that's been like what seems to me like a really like strong character building experience, and like that it's really like you. I mean, can you imagine how different your perspective would be if you never left Serbia and you didn't take the plunge and go there?
It would have been different as well. Although I did live most of my time in the United States within lockdown, I did have the chance to visit 5 different states.
Yeah.
And within those states, they have been interesting, but all of them are completely different. And if you don't like them, I'm very happy that I chose San Francisco. If I would choose in 2019, I would actually really consider between New York and San Francisco.
Yeah.
Possibly Seattle, but
yeah.
Those are the only 3. The only one that I would not consider is Miami.
Yeah.
Miami is just great if you're going there for a week and just go wild.
Beach.
And then go to Cuba, but you never know.
So yeah, I look forward to catching up with you next time I'm able to go to California, which is, it seems far off.
Or I might see you somewhere around the world.
Or in
you never know.
Belgrade, yeah.
Or somewhere else.
So thanks a lot for the interview.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And
to anyone else that is interested for the one from 2019, that's probably going to be linked below or in the comments.
Yeah. I'm going to put it, exactly. And
Thank you so much for tuning in with us, and I look forward to guys seeing you on next time with Belgrade Beat.
Yeah, and cool.
Bye.
Belgrade Beat.